There's a skyscraper in North Korea that has never opened. 330 meters of concrete in the middle of Pyongyang, standing empty for nearly 40 years. In 2011, workers finally finished wrapping it in $180 million of gleaming glass. It looked, for the first time, like a real hotel. Then photos of the inside leaked. Behind that glass, there was nothing. Bare concrete floors, no walls, no wiring, no rooms. A building 3 million people could see from their windows. And officially, it did not exist. Now, you may have heard that part before. What you probably don't know is that inspectors who examined the structure reportedly concluded that the elevator shafts running through all 105 floors are crooked, bent enough that no elevator can ever be installed in them. Which means this isn't just an empty building. It might be a building that can never be finished, no matter how much money North Korea throws at it. So how did a country end up pouring $750 million into a building that might be structurally impossible to complete? To understand that, you have to go back to before the concrete, before the glass, to the moment North Korea decided it needed the tallest hotel on Earth, whatever the cost. First, you need to understand what the 1980s felt like on the Korean peninsula. The border between North and South Korea was not simply a line on a map. It was the most militarized frontier on Earth. And on either side of it, two governments were keeping score in ways that went far beyond military hardware. Every highway was a statement. Every monument was an argument. Every tower that went up on one side was a challenge the other side felt compelled to answer. In 1986, a South Korean company finished a hotel in Singapore called the Westin Stamford. For a time, it stood as the tallest hotel in the world. The company was South Korean. The achievement was South Korean. And in Pyongyang, that landed like a provocation. At the same time, Seoul was preparing to host the 1988 Olympic Games. The most visible stage on Earth in the rival capital, broadcasting to the world that the South had arrived. North Korea's response was not diplomatic. It was architectural. Kim Il-sung ordered the construction of a hotel so tall it would make the South's achievement look small. They did not want to match it. They wanted to erase it. The plan called for more than 100 floors, over 300 meters of height, and a design so bold it would be unmissable, not just from Pyongyang's streets, but from satellites. They didn't want to build a hotel, they wanted to build a weapon out of concrete. And it worked. In August 1987, crews broke ground, and the shape that began to rise above Pyongyang was unlike almost anything else being built anywhere on Earth at that time. 3 wings, each 100 meters long, leaning inward at a steep 75-degree angle, converging at a single point. A concrete pyramid aimed straight at the sky. At the summit, a crown of 14 floors, 8 of them designed to rotate slowly, carrying 5 restaurants in a long, continuous circle high above the capital. Below that, thousands of hotel rooms, casinos, nightclubs, conference facilities. It was a building designed to pull Western money through its doors, in a country that kept the outside world at arm's length. The deadline was not negotiable. The hotel would open in 1992, in time for the 80th birthday of Kim Il-sung. A gift to the nation, a message to the world. But there was a problem no one was saying out loud. North Korea was building a structure that demanded materials, engineering precision, and construction quality that its industry had never been asked to deliver at this scale. The pyramid shape was not just bold, it was structurally demanding in ways that punish every compromise made under pressure. A slender concrete pyramid leaning inward on 3 sides places enormous loads on every joint, every pore, every alignment decision made on the way up. And North Korea was making those decisions in a hurry, with materials that were not always equal to the design, racing a political deadline that could not move. The country had chosen to skip a steel skeleton, the structural framework used in almost every skyscraper of this height, and build the tower almost entirely in reinforced concrete instead. The official reason was cost and availability. The actual consequence was a structure with far less tolerance for the kind of errors that inevitably accumulate in a rushed build. By 1992, the pyramid had reached its full architectural height. The crane sat at the summit. The shape was complete. And then everything stopped. And for a long time, no one outside could say exactly why. Then the rumors started. The official story is about the Soviet Union, and that part is true. When the USSR dissolved at the end of 1991, the lifeline that had sustained North Korea's economy for decades was severed almost overnight. Subsidized fuel, guaranteed trade, political support, all of it was gone. The North Korean economy collapsed. And within a few years, the country slid into a famine that, by the most credible outside estimates, killed between 600,000 and 1 million people. A catastrophe the state itself would later call the Arduous March. Against that, a luxury hotel was the first thing to become unthinkable. But the building had already consumed an estimated $750 million by the time work stopped, a figure that represented roughly 2% of the country's entire economic output. 2% of everything North Korea produced poured into one building. And the same government that spent that money was now presiding over a famine that was killing its own people by the hundreds of thousands. Take a moment and hold those two numbers side by side. $750 million. Up to 1 million people dead from starvation. This did not happen by accident. It happened because of choices. And the building standing empty above Pyongyang is what those choices look like in concrete. So, for a while, the pyramid sat. A bare concrete shell, 330 meters tall, with no windows, no wiring, no interior of any kind. A single rusting crane at the top, slowly oxidizing above the capital. For 16 years, it stood exactly as it was the day the workers left. And then the North Korean government did something that is almost impossible to fully absorb. It erased the building from its own country. During construction, mocked-up images of the finished hotel had appeared on North Korean postage stamps. The future advertised before it existed, sold to citizens as a promise. When the work stopped and the promise could not be kept, the government reversed course completely. Official photographs of Pyongyang were edited. The pyramid, the single largest structure in the country, visible from miles in every direction, was removed from the images. Printed maps of the city left it off entirely. But there was one thing the plan could not account for. You cannot hide a 105-story building from the people who walk past it every day. The citizens of Pyongyang could look up and see it from almost anywhere in the capital. And still, the state refused to acknowledge it. For 16 years, the largest building in North Korea officially did not exist. Think about what that requires. An institutional decision maintained across an entire government for 16 years. That the correct response to a visible, embarrassing failure was not to address it, but to delete it. For 16 years, it stayed that way, empty, unfinished, unmentioned. Then, in 2008, something shifted. An Egyptian telecommunications company called Orascom arrived in Pyongyang, not to build a hotel, to build a phone network. Orascom had struck a $400 million deal to launch North Korea's first modern 3G cellular service, a network called Koreolink. And as part of its deepening commercial relationship with the government, Orascom took on the Ryugyong. Workers began wrapping the bare concrete in thousands of glass and metal panels. The rusting crane was removed. The pyramid gained a skin, sleek, mirrored, faintly futuristic. For the first time, the building looked from a distance like it might actually become what it was always supposed to be. By 2011, the exterior was finished. The $180 million glass facade was complete, and then photographs of the interior emerged. This is the moment that stopped people cold. Behind the gleaming glass, behind the sleek mirrored surface that had finally made the building look real, the interior was exactly what it had been in 1992. Bare concrete floors, no cabling, no pipes, no partitions, no rooms. Raw gray structure stretching into shadow, floor after floor, for 105 stories. Foreign visitors briefly allowed inside in 2012 described walking across open concrete slabs with no sense of where a room would go, or how the building would ever become what the glass outside suggested it already was. The country had spent $180 million building the outside of a building that had no inside. The skin was finished. The building behind it had not yet begun. And this leads us to the structural question. In the late 1990s, a delegation from the European Chamber of Commerce in Korea inspected the Ryugyong. Their reported conclusion was devastating. The quality of the concrete used in the frame was poor, and the elevator shafts, the vertical channels running through all 105 floors, were crooked, not slightly misaligned. Crooked enough that, according to the report, no functional elevator could be installed in them. Their overall judgment was that the structure was irreparable. That verdict might have faded into rumor, but what happened next made sure it did not. In 2008, Orascom's chief operating officer said there had not been too many problems resolving the structural issues. The glass facade was completed, the building was wrapped, antennas were installed at the peak. Signs bearing the hotel's name in Korean and English appeared over the main entrance in 2019. So which is it? A building that is irreparable underneath its glass exterior? Or a building that was quietly stabilized and is now structurally closer to functional than the original report suggested? The honest answer is that nobody outside North Korea knows, and North Korea is not saying. What is known is this: the concrete frame was poured in a rushed 5-year campaign using materials of inconsistent quality without a steel skeleton in a country already under severe economic stress. The building was then exposed to Pyongyang's climate without cladding, without protection, for 16 years. Reinforced concrete that cures in poor conditions and then weathers for 16 years without maintenance does not improve, and the elevator shaft problem, if real, is not a cosmetic issue. In a building this height, crooked shafts are not a detail you work around. They are a fundamental problem that goes to the core of whether the structure can ever function as what it was designed to be. And the government that spent $750 million building it and $180 million more cladding it has never once allowed an independent structural assessment to be published. That silence is itself a form of information. But then came the announcement the world had been waiting for. In late 2012, Kempinski, a major international luxury hotel group, announced it would manage the Ryugyong. After 25 years, the Hotel of Doom had a name attached to it and a date. A partial opening was planned for 2013. The date came and went. In early 2013, Kempinski quietly withdrew. The company said only that entering the market was not currently possible. Words that arrived in the same season as a North Korean nuclear test and a fresh wave of international sanctions. The rooms that had been waiting for 25 years stayed dark. The opening that was supposed to happen in 1992, then 2012, then 2013, did not happen. So in 2018, the government made a decision that tells you more about this building and this country than any structural report ever could. They covered the pyramid in LED panels, tens of thousands of them, fitted across one entire face of the structure and eventually spreading further. At night, the Ryugyong now blazes with the North Korean flag, with propaganda animations, with film scenes and political imagery washing color across the rooftops of Pyongyang in a display visible from miles away. One of the largest LED screens on Earth, on a building that has never hosted a guest. Just think about that for a moment. The government looked at a 105-story monument to a promise it had not kept for 30 years, a building it had once erased from its own maps, and decided that the correct response was to turn it into the biggest billboard in the country. Not to finish it, not to quietly demolish it, not to find a use for it that acknowledged what it actually was, to make it glow, to make the failure so large and so bright that it could be reframed as spectacle. And that decision is not an accident. It is a statement about how this government relates to its own history, that the correct response to an unfinished promise is not completion or admission, but illumination. Make it bright enough and people stop asking what is behind the lights. A building meant to open North Korea to the world is now used to project North Korea's image back at itself every night in a city where the people watching cannot leave. And the story is still not finished. In 2024, reports emerged that North Korea was again searching for an outside investor to finally complete the building, this time by handing a casino operator the gambling profits in exchange for finishing the work. The same pitch that was made in 1987, casinos, foreign money, an open door in a closed country. 37 years later, the offer is identical, and the building is still empty. So what is the Ryugyong Hotel, really? It is not the worst building in the world, as Esquire once called it. The design is genuinely striking, a bold, original silhouette that most nations would never dare to attempt. But audacity and soundness are not the same thing. Judge it as architecture, and it is unforgettable. Judge it as a promise, and it is one of the longest unkept promises in modern history. Judge it by what it cost: $750 million in a country that within 3 years could not feed its own people. And the pyramid stops looking like ambition. It starts looking like what happens when a government builds a symbol before it builds the substance to support it. They built the height before they had the engineering. They built the exterior before they had the interior. They built the image before they had the reality. And so the building stands, finished on the outside, hollow on the inside, lit up every night with the image of a country insisting it is exactly what it always meant to be. The lights are on, but the rooms are still empty. And somewhere inside the concrete, in shafts that may be too crooked to carry an elevator, in walls that may be too compromised to repair, the original promise is still waiting for a country that can afford to keep it. So, madness or creativity at its peak? Tell us in the comments. And next, we are going from a building that was built and never opened to an entire city that was built and never filled. Streets finished, towers complete, plazas paved, infrastructure installed, and almost nobody ever moved in. The next BuildPulse video goes inside one of the most haunting urban experiments of the 21st century. A ghost city built not by accident, but by design. Thanks for watching BuildPulse. The biggest builds are never just concrete and steel. What project should we break down next?